many generations of Americans to come. In just a moment, Justice Gorsuch will be sworn in by Justice Kennedy, a great man of outstanding accomplishment. Throughout his nearly 30 years on the Supreme Court, Justice Kennedy has been praised by all for his dedicated and dignified service. We owe him an enormous debt of gratitude, and I am honored that he is with us today. This is a very, very special moment because many years ago, a young Neil Gorsuch started his legal career as a law clerk to Justice Kennedy. You remember that, right? It is a fitting testament to Justice Kennedy's impact that upon giving the oath to Justice Gorsuch, he will become the first ever Supreme Court justice to serve with one of his former law clerks. That's sort of a big deal, isn't it? Sort of like that. That's sort of good. It has never happened before. That's pretty good. It also shows you have a lot of respect for this man. It's very good. We're thrilled to share this historic moment with Justice Kennedy, with all of you here today, and with all Americans watching us at home. Justice Gorsuch, I again congratulate you and your entire family, and I wish God's blessings on your amazing journey ahead. I have no doubt you will go down as one of the truly great justices in the history of the United States Supreme Court. I now invite Justice Kennedy to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chief Justice, Justice Gorsuch, and my fellow adherents to the idea and the reality of the rule of law. As many of you know, there are two oaths that a member of the federal judiciary must take. The first is the constitutional oath that so many of you are familiar with. It applies to all three branches of the government. The second oath is one that applies just to federal judges. Both of the oaths date from the founding of the Republic. The judicial oath dates from 1789. And both of these oaths remind us that we as a people are bound together. We as a people find our self-definition, our respect, our heritage, and our destiny in the Constitution. And so, Justice Gorsuch, there is one oath remaining for you to take, the judicial oath, before you may receive and accept your commission from the President of the United States. Are you ready, Justice Gorsuch, to take the oath? Are you ready to take the oath, Justice Gorsuch? Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Neil M. Gorsuch, do solemnly swear.
I, Neil M. Gorsuch, do solemnly swear
that I will administer justice without respect to persons.
that I will administer justice without respect to persons
And do equal right to the poor and to the rich.
and do equal right to the poor and to the rich.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States,
as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States,
under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I see before me so many to whom I owe so much. I know I would not be here today without your friendship and support. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank the President for nominating me and for the great confidence and trust he's reposed in me. I want to thank the Vice President for his constant encouragement and friendship throughout this process. It's not possible to mention here everyone I should mention, but I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the President's counsel, Don McGahn, and Mark Paoletta, the Vice President's counsel, and every single person in the White House counsel's office for their tremendous and tireless support. I want to thank Kelly Ayotte and my day-to-day team for their humor, for their sage advice, for their faith, as we spent months and so many miles trooping together through the Senate complex. I want to thank every single person, and there are so many, in the White House and the Department of Justice who worked through so many late nights and long weeks on my behalf. I want to thank too Senator McConnell and Senator Grassley and their excellent teams for their support and leadership. And I must thank my former law clerks and my dear friends who gave so much of themselves so selflessly through these last 3 months. You are dear to me. This is truly your doing, and this is your day. I wish I could mention each of you by name, but you know who you are, and you know your names are etched in my heart forever. This process has reminded me just how outrageously blessed I am in my law clerks, and in my family, and in my friends. And I hope that I may continue to rely on each of you as I face this new challenge. To my former colleagues and the wonderful staff of the 10th Circuit, I thank you for your faithful service and your friendship over so many years. To my new colleagues and the staff of the Supreme Court, thank you for the very warm welcome. I look forward to many happy years together. And I cannot tell you how honored I am to have here today my mentor, Justice Kennedy, administer the judicial oath, a beautiful oath, as he did for me 11 years ago when I became a circuit judge. To the Scalia family, I won't ever forget that the seat I inherit today is that of a very, very great man. To my wife, Louise, and my daughters, Emma and Bindi, thank you for your perseverance and your patience, your courage and your love. I simply could not have attempted this without you. And to the American people, I am humbled by the trust placed in me today. I will never forget that to whom much is given, much will be expected. And I promise you that I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great nation. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until the justices of...
And with that, Neil Gorsuch becomes the 113th Supreme Court Justice. The Supreme Court is now officially a full 9, once again. Jeffrey Toobin has been sitting with me here throughout. Jeffrey, before I bring everyone else in, just your thoughts on the ceremony today.
Well, there's Justice Clarence Thomas. Is behind him is on the right is Justice Stephen Breyer. We see Justice Samuel Alito, Sonia Sotomayor.
Justice Ginsburg walking out with
Justice Ginsburg. Yeah, let's just, you don't see these folks on television very much. It's where there's Justice Kagan.
And that's Antonin Scalia's wife walking out behind Justice
That's right.
Kagan.
And that was Eugene Scalia, Justice Scalia's son, who's a prominent lawyer in Washington. Jeffrey Manier, who's the counselor to the Chief Justice, the gray-haired gentleman right there. This is not a major event just in the history of the Trump administration. It's a major event in American history. These do not take place very often. These are important events. And these people have a lot of power over issues that we cannot even imagine at this point. One of my favorite lines about the Supreme Court by Justice Robert Jackson, he said, "We are not final because we are infallible. We are infallible because we are final." Somebody has to have the last word in American politics and American life, and it's the Supreme Court. And we now know that there are 9 justices, and the fact that Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton in November of 2016, this different nomination, Neil Gorsuch as opposed to Merrick Garland or whoever Hillary Clinton might have named, is really perhaps the biggest difference, biggest consequence of that electoral result.
Also joining us right now is Joan Biskupic. She's a CNN legal analyst and Supreme Court biographer, and Nia Malika Henderson, CNN senior political reporter. Joan, these are those moments, as Jeffrey perfectly lays out, that I always wonder kind of what is going through Neil Gorsuch's mind. How much has his life just changed?
Totally, and I also wondered, about thought bubbles above the other justices too, because this is the start of a new chapter, and these events at the White House have always had some hoopla to it, but this time there seemed to be much more. The president spoke longer than usual for a president in that situation. He actually brought in some political themes. Jeff just referred to Mitch McConnell, who the president thanked. The president has Mitch McConnell to thank on 2 fronts. First of all, for getting the rules changed that allow new Justice Gorsuch to be confirmed, but also to have that seat held for more than 400 days. Barack Obama's term. And I thought it was interesting the way President Trump used the moment to talk about this beautiful spring day, this new beginning in America, a lot of political themes that you don't often see at this time. But I think, to get to your question there, Kate, about what Justice Gorsuch must be thinking, what a wonderful event. He will be seated in just a couple days to decide the law of the land. It's for life. He can say or do whatever he wants. It's unlikely that anybody would touch him, and he'll have such an important role in deciding, as I said, the law for all of us.
And Nia, as Joan points out, the president, in his opening remarks, he was really hitting a very optimistic tone, talking about spring is the perfect backdrop. He said that we're in the process of reviewing, renewing, and also rebuilding our nation. A new optimism is sweeping across the land. This is a much-needed big win for this president. You could kind of see it in his upbeat tone there.
That's right. You can see it in some of that language, renewing, rebuilding, and reviewing is somewhat new. I mean, he had touched on that a bit earlier in some of his rallies in Florida, for instance, a couple of months ago. But you can tell this is kind of a new chapter for him, at least this week, at least with this event. And he touched on it. He said he was able to do this in the first 100 days, sort of patting himself on the back in that speech and saying it wasn't easy to do that. And Joan alluded to all of the things that had to go into making this moment happen for Donald Trump. I do think when you look at sort of the wins from this first 100 days, this will be top of the list. I think the question is, what are the other wins that are going to come from this White House, from this administration? Gorsuch, of course, will sit on the bench. And a lot of people, particularly from the far right and conservatives, are really going to be looking at this justice to see whether or not he's in the mold of John Roberts, who in many ways disappointed a lot of conservatives because he upheld parts of Obamacare, or if he's going to be in the mold of somebody like Clarence Thomas or of course, Justice Scalia, who he's replacing. So that'll be interesting, and he'll get an opportunity really off the bat with some of these court cases that are before the Supreme Court already to really, I think, curry favor with some folks in the far right sort of evangelical communities that were a little nervous about some of his answers around Roe v. Wade and same-sex marriage and religious liberty from those really long confirmation hearings.
Very 20-plus hours of confirmation hearings. I want to get to what people think of his style in just one second, as you were alluding to, Nia. But Jeffrey, I think we both could have heard wrong. But after the swearing in and after the swearing in, it did seem that President Trump leaned in and said, "Go get him," a couple of times. What is in the theme of going and getting him? What is the week ahead like for Neil Gorsuch? Laid out.
Well, he's been given briefs to read, even though he hasn't been a justice yet. So he is going to have to sit in the justices' conference where they decide which cases they're going to take, and then next Monday he's going to hear arguments. But you know, there is a weirdness about these events. Justice John Paul Stevens, who served on the court for longer than almost anybody, didn't like having justices appear at the White House for swearing in. You know, here you had Justice Gorsuch praising the White House counsel, praising Mitch McConnell, praising Chairman Grassley. He's going to rule on cases in a matter of days where they are participants in the cases. So, you know, there's a reason why you don't usually see Supreme Court justices at White House events, because the White House has an extremely strong interest in how these cases come out. They have a Solicitor General's office that files briefs. The fact that the Supreme Court justices are essentially at a pep rally for one political party is something that you can sort of understand why it happens, but it makes some of them uncomfortable.
Well, I don't know if it falls in the line of irony, but there seems to be maybe a little bit of irony of welcoming the new justice in, just as you possibly, this president could be trying to welcome the retirement of another justice who is standing on the stage as well, Anthony Kennedy, of course, as we're talking about there. But a huge moment for this president and for this country, as we've discussed. Great to see you all. Thank you so much. Coming up for us, what is President Trump's policy on Syria? Depends on who you ask. Why his team doesn't seem to be on the same page right now, just days after striking the Assad regime. Plus, drama inside the palace, also known as palace intrigue. President Trump's deputy national security advisor is heading out. He's also telling his son-in-law and top advisor to work it out. We'll discuss. And a massive manhunt is underway for a man who sent President Trump a manifesto. New details on his letter, why he's been able to elude police so far, and what he stole just before going on the run. We'll be right back.
People confuse nice and kind, but they're different. It's nice to remove artificial ingredients.